Get ready for the world's greatest Arsenal podcast. Welcome to another podcast by Guns and Yellow Ribbons. Enjoy the show.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Guns and Yellow Ribbons. My name is Fergus. I am a little bit hoarse from singing and getting words wrong on the concourse of Block 5, which I'm sure we will discuss at some length today. Well, not even too much length. The three of us were together yesterday to watch the game. Trev, you left my house this morning and headed back up north because of all this kerfuffle with train strikes and everything else. What a Chinese we had last night.
Yeah, we did. It was, even though I was absolutely drunk as a skunk, right? It was a lovely Chinese. It was a lovely feed, and it was good. It was. We were quite somber while we were eating it, weren't we, Ferg? Because we just got out of the FA Cup, and so we were on a bit of a downer. But the food was good, and the company was nearly as good. So yeah, we sort of sorted ourselves out, didn't we?
Yeah, Dan wasn't there at all. So Dan, you were home sulking. Did you? You didn't go out? No, because you weren't even drinking. But I tell you what, we did come to the conclusion yesterday. You do not need a beer to get that North Bank going.
Oh, okay. I mean, good to conclude that. I mean, I'd like them to be a bit louder than they were yesterday. So maybe I do need a beer because it's not quite where I'd like it to be. But hey ho.
The only thing is, if you have a beer and you're on the North Bank, you end up with a voice like this. When you don't have a beer and you're on the North Bank, you end up with a voice like yours. Before we do go into any of that, it was of really sad news that we heard over the weekend that Sophie Nicolau lost her mum Flora, who passed away over the weekend. And we just want to pass on our condolences to her and her family. We have messaged her and we sent her a little message. We put something on Twitter just to spread the love from all of us here. It was me and Trev, but all of us here on Guns and Yellow Ribbons.
Afternoon. We're not doing our normal football sort of what we anticipate about the game because there's more important things in life than football. Family are the most important things in the world. Trev's one of my mates and part of my Arsenal family, as are the lads behind us. And one of our Arsenal family have lost somebody of their own. Sophie, we're thinking of you. And really sad to hear about your mum. Wishing you all the best from me.
Yep, Soph, our thoughts are with you, sweetheart. We're going to football today, but in the end, I'm thinking, my thoughts are with you, Soph. Love you, sweetheart.
Up the Arsenal.
Yeah, it wasn't great news to get before the game, was it? So, yeah.
No, very sad.
Yeah. Obviously, I wasn't with you guys yesterday, but same from all of us, really. It's never good news, and things more important than football. So,
they are.
Yeah. Absolutely. Listen, another momentous milestone was reached in Arsenal history over the weekend as well, which was the 90th anniversary of Sir Herbert Chapman. We done the history series with Andy and Mark a couple of summers ago now, Trev, it is. And it was really revealing. It's 2 summers ago.
Blimey. So
it's 90 years since his funeral. And I learned a lot about him, just like how ingenious he was with regards to, like people talk about Wenger, but I think the impact, Trev, that Herbert Chapman had on our club and football itself, with people coming out side by side to this day, was what he did when Arsenal played Wigan in the FA Cup final in 1931, I think it was. He started that tradition, and it's carried on in football and the FA Cup ever since. But yeah, it was an interesting podcast. Should check it out. What do you think, Trev?
Yeah, I very much enjoyed doing that series. I enjoyed it that much. I've got it pinned to the top of my Twitter account. It was a massive learning curve for both you and myself. We did that with Mark and Andy. They're two such knowledgeable guys. It was very enjoyable. And you're right, Fergie, what you say. My opinion is that if no Herbert Chapman, no Arsenal as we know it, that's it. It really is that black and white for me. It really is. If Herbert Chapman didn't come along, yeah, we might still have a football club, we might not, but we certainly wouldn't have a club of the stature that we're lucky enough and honoured, in my view, to support, mate.
Dan, did you look at the series and that particular video or not?
No, I wouldn't watch you two if I wasn't honest, to be honest with you. There's not a chance I didn't watch you two. No, I'm only joking. But I haven't. But just something that popped up in my mind. Trev said something about it was pinned. And I'm just looking at a few things that are pinned. And Trev, your lights look really good and really straight, mate. Honestly, I'm glad someone on here has got an eye for detail, because
Thanks,
the other
mate.
ones, yours are shocking, mate. I'm not going to lie. You're being shown up by Trev.
Ferg, Dan, I've got the spirit level out because I saw how bad Fergus's were, and I thought, well, I'm not dropping to that level. I'm not stooping that low. So I made sure they were pretty straight, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. God, mate, have your pictures gone even more wonky, Ferg?
You call me ginger, bruv? Do you know what? You man can say what.
He's getting boring now. He's only got one joke, hasn't he? He just gets
I know. Listen, since you're in the mood of taking the piss out of me, before we
always in the mood for that, don't worry.
Yeah, I know you are. I stood in the middle of the El Neni song, but I had been in the Woodbine, the Coronet. Do not go to the Coronet; it is awful. And the Tully beforehand.
Might have been a while.
Yeah, it was awful. I told the bouncer as well.
Other beer servers are available, everyone, by the way.
Yeah. But
I just looked back at that video and just thought, one, me turning away in disgust, and then just Sam just laughing at you, mate. It just
because
that's the highlight.
I got all the words all mixed up as per normal. It wouldn't be me if I didn't. And I had a few beers, and then Sam could see I was struggling, and he just jumped in, and I went, "Thank you." And about half a dozen guys all around it all heard it, so they all start laughing at me, going, "Oh, cheers, thanks for helping us out of a hole." It was really, really, really funny.
What was you even saying? Because it sounded like you went, that's all I heard.
No, because as soon as I'd started that sentence, I knew it was about 2 or 3 sentences on the, and that was it. My brain went to blancmange, and I was absolutely ruined. But it was a great atmosphere, I thought, there.
I thought that your numbers were down at Block 5 last night. I thought that there wasn't so many people around you as there normally. But then again, I didn't think there was going to be, with it being a cup game and being a different type of crowd. But I thought you did really well. I was very much enjoying it. I even come and had a little join in last night, And then the El Neni song came on, and Dan tried to headlock me, and I legged it quick, got out of there.
Hey, it was good. It was good. We had young Theo there. Jude, who we met a few, I think it was at the Brighton game. He came with his mum, and there's lots of other kids with their dads, and it was very much a family thing. And we got more and more of the kids involved, and it's not all about like beer swelling old gits and that. It's all about everybody being included and enjoying it. And I think we made a few kids' days, and I enjoyed myself as well. So yeah,
you were drunk for. We were both very drunk. We hit the beer a bit hard yesterday, didn't we?
We did.
We started a bit early. Hit the beer a bit hard, yeah. But it was.
You didn't have to put up with him for the whole 90 minutes of the game.
You what,
I didn't say that much.
You didn't have to put up with him for the whole 90 minutes of the game. You didn't say. You did say a few things, Berg.
Thankfully, I did.
I was promoting London and the tourism industry, or well, at least my thoughts of it, at least.
Yeah, you were very close to the line, but no, it was it's good to blood the next generation, right? We've got to get some of the youngsters through and get them enjoying just singing in front of people and enjoying themselves, and even the new faces around. And I'm sure we're going to talk about it later. New faces aren't a bad thing when people are singing and joining in and getting behind the club. So the more people to do that, the better. They'll grow to know that that's where the crowd is and that's where they go. And that's like last year, people started to know where to go, and they'll do the same thing. But just don't stand there in video, and don't stand there on the outskirts and not get involved. Just get involved. And
video if you like, but enjoy it. Get involved and sing along.
Enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moment.
Yeah,
Life's too short.
I get that, but some people are, as Trevor pointed out before, some people are going to be there once, twice. Leanne just said she's been trying all season to get in the ballot, and she can't get in the ballot. So when they're going to go there, they're going to record those moments because they're not going to get to see them very often. I just thought it was really, really good. You know,
DM me, I'll send you videos. Don't worry.
You're talking about ballots and fans, Ferg. I don't know if you've had it, boys, but I had a survey through from the Arsenal today to do with last night's game, which I don't normally fill them in, which is bad. You should. And I filled it in today. And one of the questions was, what do you think of the atmosphere at the game?
I thought you were going to say something else.
Be improved, right? And so you can imagine my answer to that. I actually ran out of space to write to them about it. It was polite, but it was to the point. So, yeah.
That's what we need, more people giving that sort of feedback, and hopefully they must have seen a difference. Honestly, there's parts of last night where you could hear a pin drop, and I've not heard the Emirates like that for a couple of years. And
no, it's not been. Look, there was a lot of things different about the Emirates yesterday, including the crowd. There was an awful lot of different people around us. We saw some of the familiar faces, but many of the familiar faces weren't in Block 5. Something else that was very unfamiliar for us at home was playing white. Should we ban? I know the sentiment and I know the message that's around the white kit. I've got different views. I've got changing views on it. I think anything that helps stop somebody getting involved in any sort of something, if it does something, great. But I don't think we should be playing in white at home. Trev?
Ferg, I'd take a slightly different view in that I don't like us to see us playing in white, but the reasoning behind it has got to be highlighted because kids are still killing each other with these knives on a almost daily, definitely weekly, but still almost daily basis. It's on the rise. There's been a big bit about it on the TV today. So I'm proud of my football club for highlighting it and going out their way. I don't like the white kit, but if it's going to save one kid from getting killed, that's enough for me, Ferg. That's enough for me. So I can live with it, mate, to be honest.
Yeah. I get that. I get both views. For me, I would like it be an all red kit. We've done that and go enough red or something like that.
So you know what the sentiment is, folks.
I know the sentiment. Let's move on from there.
I like the idea, but I think there's alternative ways of doing it, whether it's like a blacked out kit or something like that. The only thing I don't like about white is I don't ever like seeing Arsenal playing white because we don't play in white. That lot do. And for me, the history of the club avoiding us playing in white would be a good thing. But as you said, the sentiment is fantastic, and the idea behind it, they just maybe needs a little bit of a tweak. And maybe this is something I think, again, that the club maybe just needs some interaction with fans. What do you think about it? What's your idea? What do you think we could do? And maybe an alternative arrangement other than white.
Yeah. The other thing is as well, the numbers on the back. I know 10 pints of San Miguel doesn't help, but the numbers on the back make it a little bit difficult as well to figure out who's on the pitch sometimes. So let's look at that lineup. There were some changes. Ramsdale was in goal. Jesus was out because of a knee injury, and there's rumours that could be up to 3 months. We had Nelson starting ahead of Gabriel Martinelli, and we had Havertz playing as a number 9. Liverpool without Mo Salah, who was at the African Cup of Nations, and Van Dijk was dropped. What do we make of the lineup then, Dan? Were you pleased?
I've got absolutely no complaints. I think you look at that lineup. If Jesus is out, you either give Eddie a chance or Havertz up top. I think Jorginho coming in deserved a chance. Maybe was a little bit surprised that Nelson, given how big a game it was, but for me, he took his chance for the first hour and he's looked lively when he's played. So I've got no real complaints, and everyone was quite happy to see Ramsdale back.
Yeah. On that note, now, Dan, I know you said that you feel that David Raya is a better keeper on paper and will be our number 1 eventually instead of Aaron Ramsdale. But on the performance yesterday, and looking back at some of the saves on Match Today, they haven't watched the game in entirety, and other people's feedback. I know there's a bit of emotion involved in that as well. But people are saying that he deserves his start against Palace, and he was better than Raya has been to date.
Yeah, I mean, I have said many times I think Raya's the better keeper, but I've also said many times that I don't think Ramsdale had done enough to be dropped at that point. So I think long term, I do see Raya as a number one, but I've also not seen enough to suggest that Ramsdale should be dropped for Raya. And looking at both the keepers, I don't think there's much between them. I think in recent weeks, Raya has also played quite well and probably gone unnoticed. I think when Raya does play well, the fans are not going to highlight it because, quite rightly, they're behind Ramsdale as well. He's a fan's favourite. Look, I really couldn't care less who plays, mate. I really couldn't. I like them both. If they wear an Arsenal shirt, I'll support them. And it's a good position to be in, the fact that they're both quality keepers, in my opinion. And whoever plays, it's totally indifferent from me.
Trev, do you have any differing views on that? I know without going over the old same stuff again, if you know what I mean.
Do you know what, mate? I feel sorry for both of the keepers at the minute because they're both in a lose-lose, Ramsdale is going to be nervous when he comes back in. He's that kind of hyped-up player anyway. And Raya can't win because whatever he does, a lot of the fans want Ramsdale. So I feel sorry for them both. I'm still in the Ramsdale camp, if I'm honest, but Raya's done nothing wrong either. We've got two excellent goalkeepers in one place in the side, and I'm not happy with the situation because I honestly think the biggest thing about it is that I think it might be affecting the defence a bit because we've started leaking goals. We started leaking quite a few goals when before we had the change abouts with the keepers. We had the best defensive record in the league, and now we're letting quite a few goals in. So yeah, I want it resolved. If it means one of them leaving, then so be it. I don't want to see Ramsdale leave. I think Raya's a good goalkeeper as well. But my opinion, for what it's worth, I honestly think it's starting to have an effect on the bigger picture, and it needs sorting.
I think what I don't want to do, Trev, is looking at every sort of micro scenario within a game at a keeper, and that's what I think people are starting to do. And you even had people yesterday saying for the corner, Raya doesn't come for that corner and miss it. You'll have Raya all play and make a mistake, and they'll say Ramsdale wouldn't do that. And you're looking at every single mistake as opposed to saying just get behind them and support whoever's in the team. It's not a good position to be in, but I think as fans as well, the frustration is there, and it's maybe a way of fans venting frustration. How else do they show frustration? We're going to talk about boos later. Boos are not the answer, but how else do you show frustration? That there's limited ways that you can show it as a fan. And also, if we are that limited on finances to be able to buy people, as much as I'd like Raya, and I think we should sign him, if that's our funds and that's how limited we are, I don't think that's where the funds should be going.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, do you know what, Dan? I had that thought today, mate. If we get to the end of the season and FFP starts kicking in and that, if signing Raya stops us signing a striker of some capability, then I'll have questions in my head thinking, I don't know what's going on here, I don't know what's going on here. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a situation I found himself in, and it's not pleasant, to be honest. It's not pleasant at all.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the game itself. So in the first half, we were quite a dominant performance. Nelson should have put us ahead on the 3rd minute. He had Alisson on the ground. He was quite rooted. There was and it was just a poor attempt. He just went a bit too wide, overran the ball. We also had Odegaard, who was outstanding in the first half. He hit the bar. He also had an opportunity for Odegaard where he passed it to, I think it was Nelson, where he overplayed. And there seemed to be an awful lot, especially in the second half. And Havertz had two opportunities, I think, in that first half as well. But he seemed to dilly and dally and not, not take his chances. Trevor, let's look at the positives in that first half, because there was a lot of positives. We really, really played well. We talked in our drunken stupor walking back to the train station about, how well we overall played in that game when we actually deserved something, even if it was a replay. We've done the same when we went up to Anfield. We played really well. And even against West Ham, who schooled us, we didn't perform badly. We just couldn't break them down. The only poor game out of this run really is the Fulham one that's really disappointing. They're all disappointing, but let's talk about the positives in that first half. What did you make of it,
mate? Do you know what? I don't think we did anything that made us that should have said we lose the game at all in the whole game. Yeah, the second half we dropped off a bit, and Liverpool played a bit better, but we really did play well. And the pattern of the last few weeks came back to haunt us again. It really did. You know, you can't not talk about the fact that we're not putting the ball in the net. And it's come back and bit us squarely on the backside again last night. We did everything correct on the field, played really well, moved the ball well, got it into the final third, and then we just didn't finish our chances off for whatever reason, you know. And you can make all the reasons I've been hearing today, they're all quite valid in their own ways, you know. But the fact of the matter is, if you're not putting the ball in the net, you don't win games, right? So a system that was working up until a few weeks ago is now not working, yeah? All our lads that are chipping in goals have suddenly all stopped chipping in together, right? They've all stopped scoring at once. We've not just had Saka stop. We've not just had Martinelli stop. We've not just had Odegaard stop. We've not just had Jesus stop. They've all bloody stopped. And it's coming, and the problem lays for me in that there's no preparation for that happening. We haven't got a plan B. He tried to change it with some substitutions last night, but it was the same, you know. So I'm quite disappointed that we haven't got this striker. I know we go on about it, but when you look at the situation, when you look at what's happening, when them chipperinners, as I call them, with the goals up like last season, was it Martinelli and Odegaard got 15 apiece, Saka got 14? I mean, you can't blame Arteta. No one could foresee them all stopping scoring at once. You couldn't foresee that. It's just bad luck, but it's happened. And it's not happened because we're not building up the game properly. We're really playing quite well. So the one thing that disappoints me is we need someone to put the ball in the net. Was I drunk, or did we played Havertz further forward last night, didn't we?
Havertz was number 9, yeah. And you were drunk.
It didn't work, did it? It didn't work. I'm not knocking the lad for his efforts. I'm just saying it didn't work playing him through the middle. We didn't seem to be a threat that way.
Didn't it?
I'm really quite worried. I'm really quite worried because if it doesn't change, if they don't start scoring again and making the most of all these chances we're making soon, the season's going to become a no-go. It honestly is. It's that serious, this. So I don't know what the answer is, but I'm hoping my manager, who I still trust, Mr. Arteta, has got something up his sleeve and we're going to sort it.
Dan, your first half view, and you were unsure if Trevor was totally drunk enough talking about Havertz. What was your view on the first half performance and Havertz?
I think Havertz did well in that role. I think when Havertz plays up top with his back to goal, he brings a different dimension to our team. But I do agree that he's not a clinical striker, and he's not going to be that type of player. There are some people that just have it in their locker that they can finish when they get a chance, they'll bury it. And I'm not disagreeing that we don't need a striker. In fact, 100% we need a striker. We need a focal point. We need someone that can play on the line, that can play against the defender and just be a little bit nasty and be a bit of a problem for a defender. We don't have that aspect to our squad at the minute. But one person isn't going to solve that issue. This is a collective issue that the team have stopped scoring and the team have dropped confidence in terms of finishing chances. So, and not only are we not finishing chances, we're not clinical in our own box in terms of defending, from set pieces. We've conceded 3 games in a row now from a set piece, and we're not quite at the races as a squad at the minute, and that makes things look worse than they are. But the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. It's exactly what this squad is at the moment. The way we're set up is fantastic. The way we press, the way we suffocate teams, the way we play football. We're creating chances. We're doing everything we need to do as a team, as a squad, as a backroom staff, as a manager, to get us in a position at both ends of where we need to be. But there are times when the players have to take responsibility. And at the moment, the players are not producing what we know they can produce and what the level we need to produce to continue in a title race. But things change very quickly in football. A few weeks ago, City were on a downer, lost a few games. Everyone's saying City are not the same. Now, all of a sudden, they're back favourites again for the title, and everything's hunky-dory for them. Things can change. We just need a run. We need to build confidence again, and as fans, we need to get behind the team and help lift them.
Fergus,
Still very young. Go on.
Ask you a quick question, mate. I like it when you answer a few questions, mate. I said it after the West Ham game that I thought West Ham had worked us out and played to our weaknesses, or looked at where our weaknesses were and made sure we stayed there. Are we being worked out? Are managers starting to realise now that maybe, for want of a better phrase, for a bit of a one-trick pony, if it don't go for us one way, it's not going to go anyway?
I think there's an element of that, because if you just have to look at the Villa game that we went to back in when was it, April, and the way Saka, Odegaard, and Ben White worked on that wing together was sublime. It was unreal. It was one of the best bits of football. I was sitting there, stone cold sober lad, both times at the Villa games, and they were great. And yet again, we went to this Villa game. And it seems that you've got two people on Saka. You don't allow us to play out so wide. Martinelli has to come in a bit sooner. That doesn't allow Odegaard to tick and create like he did before. I do question maybe a selection of a player or two maybe causing that problem as well. Is it Havertz that's causing that issue? Because we don't, not necessarily Havertz himself, but it's not Granit Xhaka. And as much as some of us are fans, some of us aren't fans, he was definitely a Marmite character, I think the lack of Granit Xhaka has had a big impact on this squad. Plus, as Leanne said, is there unrest behind closed doors? I don't know. Yeah. Dan?
The thing I'd say on that, though, is back to what I just said about leading the horse to water. We are creating chances. So I wouldn't say that they figured us out. They're giving us more respect as a team because they know how good we are. But they haven't figured us out. They're not stopping us creating chances. We are just not finishing them. If we finished our chances, we would be winning these games. And it would all be on a completely different sort of scale of where we think the club is and where we can go to. We're just not bearing our chances. And that's down to us and no one else other than us. But we have changed a little bit how we play. Last year, we were very much more end-to-end. You attack, we attack, Liverpool, Klopp style. We are more controlled this year. We're a bit more City-esque in terms of how we control and suffocate teams, and it was working for a while in terms of how we defend. It's definitely given us a bit of a change up top. We're not quite as slick, but if we're still creating chances, I'm not worried about the setup of the team. I'm just worried that we're not finishing them.
Yeah, I am worried because we have had 61 shots in 3 games and scored 1 goal. You know, and yet in that first half, we absolutely battered Liverpool in that first half. I was talking to, not far down from where you are, I was in Brentwood today, and I was talking to a guy, and he's a Liverpool fan, and he was saying he was petrified. He didn't know how much we were going to beat them by. 3 or 4 in that first half. We absolutely annihilated them, but we couldn't finish off. We couldn't finish a dinner, and that is got to be unacceptable, Dan.
So does that not mean that the setup and the way we're playing is working, but now individuals need to take ownership and finish their chances? So this isn't a setup. This isn't people figuring us out. This isn't people suffocating us and stopping us play. We're doing what we need to do to the ball in it.
There is an element of that where people are changing their style when they come into Arsenal. We've had it for years where, you know, the low block and the people, West Ham done it perfectly. If we look at it honestly, they got an early goal and that was it. There was nothing getting through them. And then they nicked the second one on the counter. And, you know, the rest is history. They go away at the 3 points. Lyle makes a good point as well about the build-up play is a bit too slow. Back to the fast end-to-end football that you talked about, and that we could do with a striker, somebody clinical up top. I think we all know that, and that was. Oh, I was just putting that up, Trev. Lyle's comment.
Yeah, it's a big comment.
Yeah. But you know, well, we'll go off on a little bit of a tangent away from the game, but I do think it's relevant in the sense that, you know, if we have somebody who's a bit more clinical, if those players, if we're allowed to play, that's the opposition's job. If we're allowed to play the football that we can play, then we're definitely being 1, 2, or 3 up. But do you not think it's a bit? Trev, you can probably back on this one. Do you think it's a bit tippy-tappy and a bit too, like using Odegaard for an example, when he was clear on goal and he passes over to Nelson and Nelson fluffs his lines, and we've seen that quite a few times.
You see, it's interesting you say that, Ferg, because it wasn't too tippy-tappy last season when we were slotting all those chances away. But having said that, I think did Arteta mention himself something about it becoming a bit of a psychological problem, putting the ball in the net for these young players in front of goal, and that might be the reason we're seeing them pass and not shoot. Who knows what goes through their minds at that level of football, at that speed and that pace. But so I haven't got an answer to that question, Ferg. But what I do know is that someone within Arsenal Football Club needs to have an answer with that question, because it needs to change. It needs to change quickly. We need to convert the great football we're playing into goals, because nothing else matters. You can play great football 20 games in a row. If you don't score a goal, you're not. It's not worth it. You're not doing anything, So I dare say they're working hard on it. They've got one game in the next 21 days. We'll talk about people saying players play too many games shortly, but they've got one game in the next 21 days. They need to take it away and use those 21 days to really work out what's going on. And I'm sure that I trust our manager. I still trust him, and he's our manager. You know what I'm like. So I'm sure that he'll have things going through his head, and he'll have his team working on us, looking differently when we come out next time. Fingers crossed.
Dan, should they take more shots from outside the box? Odegaard was in a few positions where he could have hit the bar in that time. Obviously, Trent Arnold done the same at the end of the first half.
I'm going to say no, because I know the moment you mentioned with Odegaard pass to Nelson, because I watched it back last night. And if you look at when Odegaard's about to take that shot, he's being closed down, and he sees a player wide that has a chance to get and run at a player. Nelson didn't control the ball right. He didn't take it in his stride. Odegaard is playing fantastic at the minute. I think he's going by because the players around him are not finishing, himself included, not finishing, by the way. He's part of that. But looking at the stats, I looked at something on Sky a couple of days ago, and he's creating the most chances from open play from anyone in the league at the minute. He's got, I think, third most pre-assists chance, like pre-passes for the assists, so basically opening up the defence before they pull it across or create a chance. He's doing everything he needs to do. He looks good on the ball. He looks neat and tidy. He looks a threat. But if your players around you don't finish, you don't look as good. It comes down to a point that eventually you're going to have, if people are not finishing their chances, we need to look at someone that can come in and take their place that can finish them. But are you telling me we're going to go and rip up that front four and change the whole front four?
They're not going to at this stage, but there was changes in the personnel. We had Jorginho on with in that number 6 role, which allowed Rice to move into that 8 role, and then Havertz into the 9, and all this sort of stuff. Do you think that's what we were missing, and that's why we looked more lethal in that first half, and that's why even Odegaard seemed to have the space to move around?
No, because I've not seen anything different from other games. We saw the same in previous games. It's if people are not finishing chances, it changes your perspective of a game. You're never going to come out of a game losing thinking, "Oh, we're amazing." As well as we played fantastic yesterday, but everyone's on a down. Everyone's talking about negatives. People are never going to talk about how good we are. But we're not a million miles off. It's fine margins, and we just need to build that confidence up again and start putting the ball in the net. I think I'd have them on the training ground, just physically putting the ball in the net 100 and 150 times. It's confidence.
It's interesting, boys, isn't it? It's I just read that comment there from Dan, and I forgot what I was going to say. That comes with old age, people, that you've all got it coming. Don't worry about it. But we're doing everything right, apart from when I left the ground last night, I was disappointed because we'd gone out of the FA Cup, a competition that I know it's losing a bit of its sparkle for certain people, but as an older Arsenal fan, the FA Cup means the world to me, and I love to see us in a cup run. It feels you're full of hope. As long as you're in the cup, you're full of hope, and you've got another option. And to go out in the third round, I always take it really quite hard. I do, and I've suffered a bit today with it. So I left the ground last night very disappointed because of that. Not so much because of the way we played, even because in the back of my head, I'm thinking we can't keep on playing this well and not score. We can't keep on playing this well and not score. It's going to come back. But as I said earlier, between now and it coming back, I'd like us to have another option that helps kickstart it again. Yeah, and we haven't got that option for me. That's going to help us kickstart it. That's the only thing that worries me about what's happening at the moment, boys.
So it was a frantic first half. I don't know, wow, what a first half of football it was for a neutral watching that game. And I did speak to a West Ham fan as well today, and they thought it was enthralling to watch. As a neutral, it would have been great. As an Arsenal fan, frustrating. As a Liverpool fan, frightening, especially in that first half. In the second half, Liverpool and Klopp changed it up slightly. They moved Nunes out, so I think it was to the left or, well, out wide, which meant that Nunes, Jota and Diaz started to work a bit more effectively in the start to get at a stand. But it wasn't without our chances. Saka had a chance at 58 minutes. Havertz had a chance at 61 minutes. Then we took off Nelson and brought on Martinelli to give it a new impetus. So we still did look in this game. And I remember we saw some substitutions from Liverpool. And you turned around to me and said, it was all the young lads that were going on. You turned around to me and said, Klopp doesn't want a replay, because we're all thinking, oh, it's going to be a replay. When will a replay be? It looks like it's going to finish in 0-0. Yeah, but it was definitely a really strong start to that second half as well.
Yeah, they made changes in the second half that we had to deal with. When Gakpo went up top, gives a bit of a different focal point for Liverpool than Nunes. They switch around a lot, but it's football at the end of the day. When you miss chances, they come back to bite you, and that's what happened in that game. But I've got no doubt that when we play them on February the 4th, that we'll beat them at home. As long as our confidence picks up again and we start to win a few games, they're there for the taking. In my opinion, with a better side, we're just in a bad spot at the minute.
I'll be there, but unfortunately I won't see the game because it's my birthday and I'm bound to be blind drunk by the time you've all bought me beers, because you'll be drinking by that stage as well.
I'm not buying you a beer.
Listen,
beers. I had a little look at my bank statement today. Ouch from yesterday.
Yeah, it was an expensive day.
Too easy. Ping, ping, ping. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and you spent cash as well.
Yeah, I did. Donald watches this program, Fergus. Stop it.
It was my cash. I lent you because we couldn't spend any in there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'll let you off then.
Yeah. The own goal, Kivior. You touched on it earlier, Trevor, about Ramsdale, and I've seen the replay and slowed down and everything else to do on VAR. Ramsdale had that well covered, and I think he was going to punch that ball well clear. Kivior just gets caught a bit rabbit in headlights in the back of the net, doesn't he? Is he good enough as even backup for us, or you know?
Oh look, Ferg, he's not a bad player. I'm not going to pull the to pieces, but I've watched it back today. I've not watched the whole game back. I couldn't suffer it. But I've watched that bit back today, and I honestly thought it was poor defending from Kivior because he was up above everybody else, and he could see the ball coming, and he's put it squarely into his own net. People say that that Ramsdale should have stayed on his line, and Raya would have stayed on his line. That old argument. If they were on their line, they weren't saving that header. If they were on their line, they weren't saving it. It flew in off of Kivior, didn't it? So, yeah, I thought it was. I thought it was a poor bit of defending, and Leanne's right. He looks devastated, but so he should. So he should, because players of that caliber should learn from them things. And if he wasn't devastated, Leanne, then I'd be worried. If he'd come up from that smiling and ran off, I'd have been worried. The fact that he looked devastated tells me that he knows he's made a bit of a cock up, and he's going to make sure we don't do it again.
Dan, what did you make of that? And then we made some changes after that. But what did you make of conceding? Especially, yes, they grew into the game and they did get better in the game. But I thought they were just going, listen, we go for a draw, we lose. I didn't think they were pushing to win, and it went against the run of play a little.
Yeah, I thought the only way they was going to score at that point was from a set piece. But it felt very much like a lack of communication within the team, whether the keeper needs to call for it, whether the defenders need to call for it. Kivior didn't attack the ball. He was very much still. He didn't really get off the ground. His jump wasn't great. I think poor defending from a set piece is what happens. You get punished. I think when you look at that game, I don't think I can really call many people out in that game and say they didn't play well. I think if I had to pick the player that didn't play the best out of the whole squad, I'd probably say it was Kiwior of them in general play as well. But again, not going to be hard on the lad. I feel sorry for him that he's pushed out to left back. I don't think he's a left back. I think he needs to be playing as a centre half in his natural position. Some centre halves do not like being played out wide. They don't like being defending one-on-one. You look at Kiwior from open play, he tucks in too close to the centre back. He doesn't want to be out wide. He doesn't want to be isolated, and I don't think he's comfortable there. I think he's a bit of a square peg around.
Modern fullbacks have to be an awful lot more mobile and do an awful lot more up and down the pitch rather than just hoofing the ball away. Like, I'm not saying that Saliba, but he can hoof it away perfectly. We made three substitutions.
Exactly what Lyle said. He's not even a third choice left back because I don't think he is even a left back. He's played there. It's a square peg in a round hole. So that's why I don't want to sort of get on his back. He's a young lad. He's got talent. I think he'll be a good asset to the team when he plays at centre half. When he came in. The back end of last season at centre half instead of holding, I think he had a good run of games and he had some good performances, but I think left back's not his position.
Well, and while we're talking about that, Ferg, it's worth remembering because I've seen the odd person moaning about him, and it's wrong. Ben White's not a right back. Ben White was brought into the club as a centre half, and he's played right back for the last couple of seasons and done really well in my view. So. Yeah, some people just need to think a little bit before they start calling these players out,
We made further substitutions. Then at 81 and 88 minutes, we took Jorginho off ready, which was in direct response to us conceding the goal. And we brought ESR and Trossard on to replace Kiwior and Havertz. And the 88th minute of the game, making substitutions like that is almost... Trev, how effective, or Dan, if you want, either, how effective is making subs at that point? Is it a bit too late? Should we not just put all three on, at the same time at the 81 minute, even though that was in reaction to conceding the goal? Who wants to go?
Oh, well, look, I don't mind. Yeah, I have a lot of sympathy for Smith Rowe at the moment. I thought that Arteta got it a bit mixed up last night. We was clearly struggling from long before the 88th minute. Yeah, Smith Rowe didn't get a go. I would have had Smith Rowe on for Havertz a lot earlier. I think that in them situations, you roll the dice, and you hope for the best. And I want to see Smith Rowe get more game time. And from about the 70th minute onwards last night, 75th minute onwards, maybe, I thought that it was an ideal time to chuck Smith Rowe on and let him show what we can do. He might have even turned out to be the plan B. Who knows? But we'll never know,
Dan, what was your thoughts on the substitutions?
I'm trying to think about the scenario of the game at the time when he made the subs. And the first sub when he brought on Martinelli for Nelson, I think was perfect timing. We spoke about it in the ground, and then he made a big impact. Then the next sub that you have to bring on, if you've not got a natural centre forward up top, was Eddie, and he ended up bringing him on. And I think at one point he took off the holding midfielder. So who else is he going to change at that point? And if you're going to change one of the eights or someone in that position, it's not going to be someone that goes out left. It's not going to be someone up top. So it's going to be in one of those 8 positions. And then you had ESR or Trossard. And I think of the two, I think Trossard deserves more of a go than ESR at the minute. And I think as a fan base, we get too sentimental with certain players. I don't think ESR will make it at the club, and I've said this a few times. I'd love him to. He's one of our local boys that's come through the academy, but I don't think he's going to make it at the club. And I'm not surprised his game time's limited. I can't see him changing a game for us at the moment, personally. So unless there's a major change in the system and the way we play, and again, I'm not the manager. I don't know what he was thinking at that time. I understand him not coming on too late.
I can't argue with a lot of what you say because I do think Trossard has been had a lot of impact coming off the bench. He seems to be better off the bench than he has in many of his starts. Smith Rowe, as much as I like him, I can't see him getting ahead of flavour of the month in Havertz. When you spend £65 million on a player, you're going to play them. And we all said that when Havertz was signed, the impact that would probably have on ESR plus his fitness. But he's never going to get a proper run. He's too good for the unders, and he's not getting enough game time for the first team. Trev, what do we do with a problem called ESR?
Well, before he got injured, he was getting more game time and he was playing really well and he was scoring goals. He was scoring goals very much in the Odegaard fashion, if you think back. So I just like to see him given I'm not going to tell anybody that I think ESR is a game changer and going to be a world beater, but I'm also not going to say that he's not going to do magical things because he's not had the game time to show me that, right? So I'm not making the balls out of the court for ESR at the moment. I look at Havertz, right, and I think that he never made it really at Chelsea, right? Chelsea bombed him out, but Arteta must have seen something in him, and Arteta didn't see something in Havertz for 5, 10, 15, 20 million. Arteta saw something in Havertz for 65 million. So there must be something that Arteta knows about Havertz that we're going to start seeing pretty soon. Because I'm not seeing £65 million worth at the moment. That's not a personal attack on the player. It's just the way I think. But for Edu and Arteta to spend 65 million on him, I'm sure that they know what they want to do with him, and hopefully it's going to come to fruition sooner rather than later. Because we need it. We need him we need him doing more than he does. He looks a bit timid to me, Havertz. He just looks a bit timid. He doesn't look like he's put his foot into the mix when it really needs putting in, I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I want to see more from him. I'm sure that Arteta and Edu want to see more from him. Fingers crossed as we move into the second part of the season. We see more from him. And it might be the case, Danny might be right here. Look, Havertz is a good player. He's just been ruined by Chelsea. I hope that's the case, Danny. And it's just taking him a bit of time to get going. I really do hope that's the case, mate. I want to see every player that plays for the Arsenal succeed. But right at this very moment in time, I want to see some improvement. I want to see him being a leader on that pitch. I want to see him being £65 million worth of player. Money well spent, not down the drain.
I think they have taken a bit of a gamble on him at the end of the day. They know the player he potentially could be and the player he was showing at Leverkusen and then what happened at Chelsea. So I think there is a bit of a gamble there. I think there's more natural talent there.
Dan, knowing that we needed a striker or we need somebody who can score goals and the limitations with FFP that we're all talking about coming into the transfer window, is that a gamble we should have taken then, or should we have addressed the first problem, the core problem first, before we go and have a luxury purchase in Kai Havertz?
Well,
again, not thinking him out.
Hindsight's fantastic, right? At the point we signed Havertz, we've just come off of the start of the season where everyone was scoring still. We'd had a bit of a knock in confidence at the end of the season, but we didn't feel like we were going to lack goals. We looked at strikers and we thought Jesus is going to come back and he's been fantastic. We always knew we needed a backup. Eddie, I feel sorry for him because his strike rate is probably one of the best. I think he's the second best in our squad in terms of output to expected goals. But we know he's not going to be the player. We know we needed a backup. We didn't think we needed to go out and get that top number one striker unless there was some huge player with the X factor like an Mbappe or an Osimhen or someone that became available. So what we wanted at that point was to try and bring someone in that can fill Xhaka's role, that maybe gives us a bit more creativity there as well, but also a player that offers something in the air and with his back to goal. And I think Havertz does offer that. I don't think you can look back and say we expected everyone to drop off as they have, and now everyone's all of a sudden questioning that even more. I genuinely feel like Havertz has had a 6.5, 7 out of 10 start to his career at Arsenal. He hasn't been anywhere near as bad as people are making out to be.
Oh, no, I agree with you.
A lot of room to improve to.
You see, boys,
I agree with you.
And don't forget, right, Paul's exactly right in his comment now, right? That comment there, in that when we signed Havertz, we were scoring goals from all angles, from all areas. Mikel Arteta could not, because no human being could have foreseen all of our forward players stopping scoring at one time. You couldn't foresee it. It's impossible to foresee, especially as we're still making the chances and still approaching the penalty area with great moves like we have done. So, When he signed Havertz, maybe it wasn't so clear that we might have needed a striker. So, I have a bit of sympathy with Arteta. And what I remembered, while it comes to Arteta, I've seen the odd moan about today about Arteta, right?
We're going to do that in a sec.
Oh, sorry, Ferg.
Yeah. Now, just finishing up on the game. There's nothing really we could have done about the great goal by Diaz at the end on the 94th minute. People flooding out of the stadium. A lot of talk about some boos and booing in the stadium. Heard a few around us. I didn't hear it as bad as when you listen back on the TV. Dan, do you recall? You were more sober than me. Do you recall much groaning and moaning and stuff?
Yeah, quite a bit. I was surprised that people have not heard as much, to be honest. And when you watch it back on BBC, go watch when the full-time whistle blows. You can hear it. I've got absolutely no grey area on this, in my opinion, and people are going to get the ump, and I couldn't care less. If you boo your team, you are not a supporter in my eyes. And I'm not telling people how to support the team or what to do. Honestly, I really understand some fans having different opinions and not agreeing on Arteta or on certain players. And football is a game of opinions. No one's going to agree. We don't have to agree. But the definition of a supporter is to offer your support, to try and lift them up, to improve them, to get behind them. I don't understand what you're trying to achieve by booing your team. Do you really believe that those players are going to all of a sudden think, oh, I've heard the fans booing, I'm now going to get a rocket on my backside and we're going to play better? No, they're going to think, don't really want to play for these fans. Whereas when you're there, win or lose, clapping at the end and saying to them, come on, pick yourselves up, let's go again, they're going to want more. Now, we all want the same thing as fans. We want our team to win. That's the only thing we want. I couldn't really care less about anything else. I just want my team to win. So the way I'm going to try and do that, the only thing I can have control of as a fan is to try to make some noise and get behind them, not to boo them. And I don't actually believe that the majority, I would say 99% of the fans that really follow this club, that go home and away, that put time, effort and money into this team, boo them. So I think it's a shame to be having comments on this, because I think the majority of our really good fans that we've got, our great fan base, don't boo them. But there are some people that feel entitled that we are a club that has to win absolutely everything, that they can come once a season and they can say, I'm not happy now, I'm going to boo. Well, when they've been that silent throughout the whole game, they made more noise at that final whistle, I bet, than I've heard a lot of them make throughout the game. The time to make a noise was during the game, not at the end of it.
Yeah, it's Fergus. It's a strange one, isn't it? I can't get my head around them. I mean, I'm in block 7, as you guys know, and I didn't hear any booing around me at the end of the game. It's been suggested to me today that the fans that were booing might have been booing the officials and not the players. So I take that on board. But if you ever boo our players, you need to be taking a real good look at yourself, not a look at our team. We support our club through thick and thin. What our players need, especially after last night when we didn't play too badly, is something that might be really hard to do. Especially, it was hard for me to do last night because I was so grumpy at the result. Clap them off. I clap them off and I let them know I'm there to support them through thick and thin, through good and bad. That is why we go to watch games of football. So we don't need to be booing it at all. There's no positives to come from booing a football team. There are no positives to come, especially not in that situation.
Daniel Harris from The Guardian wrote an article about 10 things that he noticed from the FA Cup, and his top one was one on Mikel Arteta. I'll summarise a couple of bits out of it. He said, if results don't improve quickly for Mikel Arteta, we'll soon experience an intensified version of pressure. While he's done a decent job over the last few seasons, he's been afforded money, and now he has a player he likes in every position, and with various alternatives. Making a success is no longer a bonus; it's become a necessity. The lack of reliable goal scorer and the able to redeem a poor performance, or as it happens against Liverpool, a really good one go unwarranted. A striker might help, but Arteta also has to tweak his side style and fast to prevent the season, or perhaps buying some players to help them go through. Thoughts then, Trevor, because you started saying about Arteta. Daniel Harris says he will come under some pressure at some point. He's clearly already under pressure and has been from day one because, you point a rookie manager or a guy who has managed to a club that is Arsenal Football Club 4 years ago. He's done a great job so far. And every day of that time he's done a great job. He would have been under pressure to perform at a highest level.
Look, right, there's absolutely nothing wrong with calling Arteta out about his tactics or the way we've done it tonight, the way he sets his team up, who he might buy or who he might sell, or get some reasoning behind why he chooses one goalkeeper over another. As fans, we are absolutely entitled to do that, and we do it all the time on this podcast. But people are actually calling. I've seen the odd one or two today, not many, actually saying that he's coming under pressure and he might have to go. Well, guys, we're still better than we were before he took over. We're in a much, much better place. Mikel Arteta is nowhere near being sacked or leaving the Arsenal Football Club. He couldn't foresee the position where we're going to see ourselves in. Anyone that thinks they could foresee what was happening at the Arsenal the last couple of games, you really should be a football manager because you're better than most other people. So, yeah, we'll call him out, but he's nowhere near going. Not only James here says he's spent 700 million now. Great job. Is a bit over the top, lads, right? But it's not just about what he spent, right? It's what he had to do when he first came in, right? He had to face up to some real big-name players, some real prima donnas who were not performing for the Arsenal Football Club. Those same people that got a fine manager like Emery the sack, right? Because they wouldn't play for him. And he's had to do that. He's had to go through that. And he's not only bought players, he's set it all up from the backroom staff to the players on the field. And for me, he ain't doing nothing wrong yet. I'd see Fergus is, for everyone that's wondering about what Fergus is doing, he's gone for a wee because at his age, he can't hold his bladder for an hour of our podcast.
Is it a wee or is he dropping the kids off at the pool?
You what?
Is it a wee or is he dropping the kids off at the pool?
It could be, yeah.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, he might be. He might even be straightening
during the podcast.
He might even be straightening that wonky picture, Dan, behind us.
No, there's no chance of him doing that. No chance at all.
But
there's so many things to say on that Arteta thing and comments and things I've heard, right? And the first thing I would say is, you're right there, Ferg?
Yeah, I'm fine.
The only thing I would say is I absolutely agree. There's people that think you can't question him. You absolutely can question him. No doubt about it. Everyone can be questioned. So everyone has to be held to account. But where I see Arteta, he took over in a position where we were in absolute dire straits. And he's brought us back beyond anywhere I could imagine within that period. I honestly didn't believe that in 4 years that we would be back challenging 2 consecutive seasons and be in a position that we are now, with the connection we have with the club, with the style of play that we have with the club, with the young squad that we have and all the potential we have in our squad. And I can't for the life of me see how people believe that Arteta is the problem. And Arteta is also a young coach. Yes, he spent a lot of money. There's a lot of money in football to go around. But I wouldn't say saying he's been great is over the top. In fact, I'd say that's downplaying what he's done, because I think he's been an absolute revelation. I think he's been unbelievable as a manager in what he's done for our club. And generally, my support for Arteta is unwavered. There's not a single person I would want as manager instead of him. 100% support behind him in what he's doing. And I do honestly believe he's the man that's going to take us back to winning trophies more than we probably have in the past. But you have to give him time. You have to give him the same amount of time that you give to a young player.
Will we sing his name? Will we sing his name when he brings us back again?
Absolutely. But you have to give him the same time that you give to young players, because he's going to make the same mistakes. But what you can't always do is pinpoint and put things on him that are not his primary responsibility. People saying, Arteta, go buy a striker. This isn't FIFA. This isn't Football Manager. It's not that easy to go, I'll click a button and I'll buy a striker then. Oh, let's just
January's not the best time. January's not the best time either.
No, but Ferg, let's go buy Ivan Toney then, right? What, the player that's just come out and said, one, he's committed to Brentford. the club that said 100 million when he isn't worth it, let's just go buy him with the money that we don't have. It's not that simple. And I think people need to get out of this idealistic world where everything's as simple as they think it is on paper in a computer game, because it isn't like that. He doesn't make the signings on his own. He has a whole backroom staff and people up top in the board that's got to make those decisions. There's the finance behind it that makes a big difference. This is a major corporate. You think Arteta is going to be able to say, okay, I'm going to have 100 million and go spend it on a striker? It's not his decision. He might have an input in who he wants and targets and things like that, but that's about as far as it goes. I think people live in a naive world that they think they can just go and buy who they want and then everything will be hunky-dory.
Arnie's got a suggestion. Ten Hag.
And you're exactly right. But I'm just watching the FA Cup draw, and Tottenham have got a home draw against Manchester City. That'll be interesting. But I'm not interested in that anymore. Dan, you're exactly right, mate. You know, call him out for his tactics, call him out for, you know, his planning if he has a bad game. But overall, Dan, you're exactly right. We still have a fine young manager on our hands. You know, we're still on an upward spiral. We've hit a bit of a slippery slope. But as I said earlier in the program, I'm sure that slippery slope won't continue for long.
So what's caused that slippery slope? Is it something on or off the pitch? Is there disquiet behind the scenes? I've heard talks of the Raya Ramsdale situation, the Havertz favoritism, Smith Rowe not getting enough game time, Gabriel being dropped for the first 2 games, loads of different things. And listen, I don't hear it directly, but it's reasonably close that nobody's questioning the manager, but I think people are just going raised eyebrow here and there.
People are. Some people are going back to, I think Arteta needs to leave and Arteta out. And that's
no. Listen, I'm on a WhatsApp group and I can see loads of that. And there's people on other fan channels and clicking for and screaming and shouting at webcams for various reasons and saying all that ridiculous stuff. Because Arteta decides, you know what, I can't stand all this crap that comes up on social media. I'm not interested anymore. I'm walking away. Who do you get in his place? Name a decent manager there who you can get in his place.
Ferg, listen, if we all had the answers to the questions you just asked, mate, we wouldn't be doing this podcast. We'd be manager of a football team, right? But a very important point you touched on there, right, is people need to remember as well, and I'm not going to name any names, I'm not calling anyone out physically, right, personally, that us having this bad run has played into the hands of certain news channels, certain press channels, and absolutely certain so-called Arsenal channels, right? Played into their hands. They like nothing more than getting more clicks and making more money on the back of a bit of a bad run at the Arsenal. And I'm proud to say that I can sit here and say I know for a fact that will never happen on this podcast. We pulled Arsenal to pieces tonight, but we're proper supporters, you know. We're not gonna use this blip in form to try and better ourselves, right? The only thing we've all got on our mind, the 3 of us, is seeing our great football team improve, you know, get their form back. So I'm frustrated about it all, right? And Fergus, is it time for me to? We were talking this morning, weren't we, mate, with our hangovers about Talk Sport, and I said I don't listen to it very often, you know, but you talked about it, and I listened to it on the way home today, and this is what we have to battle, right, from certain parts of the media. That Jim White, Graham Souness, and that Simon Jordan bloke on from Crystal Palace, right, and they're picking the Arsenal performance apart. And in fairness, Jim White and Souness were really doing good. They were talking about the game, talking what they thought our bad bits were, what our good bits were. I really enjoyed listening to them. And then that Jordan came in, right? And his remit against the Arsenal was so apparent within about 10 seconds. Within 10 seconds, he was calling Arteta out for talking badly about refs, right? He was calling Saka out because he was moaning he got tackled too much. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute. It's the day after a big loss. We ain't here to talk about this. It was absolutely awful, Jordan, this morning. For someone who purports to be an intelligent man and an intellectual, His standard of journalism on TalkSport this morning was disgraceful. And I just thank Sal Ness and Jim White for keeping him in his place, really. And I had to get that off my chest tonight. I really did.
Yeah, I can't have Jim White. Souness, he's just always bitter on everything he's on. He's bitter about absolutely everything. I think he's bitter about his heart attack, and he's bitter about. I think he wakes up and he sucks on a lemon. The likes of Dale Knowles, aka Jamie O'Hara. Well, we say no more on there. But I quite like Simon Jordan. Again, it's tomatoes. I think he says it as it is. You don't have to necessarily like him, but I think Jordan, he, as Dale said, he wins his argument based on his vocabulary, not his knowledge. Yeah.
Listen, I've got to come back to you about that with that Jordan fella, right? In that he does say it right straight. But he doesn't say it on what he sees. He says it on what his remit is, right? And there's a massive difference.
Oh yeah. But to be honest, that is the reason for those sort of channels. Be it channel or no. Hang on. Be it Sky Sports News, be it any of the news channels. They just do clips and stuff just to, generate clicks. It's no different than all the newspapers now. They've even got some guy with tattoos and a ginger short fella on the front of the Sun in America. I got
the shock of my life when I was seeing that this week. My Lord.
He sounds more jealous than anything, doesn't he, Trev, to be honest? But
yeah.
The last thing I'll say on that, just quickly, let's get away from talk shite and all that crap, but back to people wanting change constantly. There's a culture in society now, and I'm not going to get too deep into politics and different things, but whatever it is, whether it's political, whether it's life, whether it's comedians on stage, whether it's football, there's a cancel culture and everybody wants to change. And whenever they don't like something, they want it changed immediately. They have no patience. And sometimes things in life are not that easy to just make a change and everything will be hunky-dory. Sometimes you have to see things through and you have to put up with a bit of the bad times to get the good times. And just let's not worry about things that are outside of our control. Let's just get behind the boys and make some noise and enjoy watching football. And let's not pick too much of the negatives and move past it, because if not, you're going to drive yourselves mad on things that are not going to change, that are outside your control. And also you're going to piss off everyone around you. So cheer up.
Yes. So we've got a winter break coming up. We've got no football for nearly 2 weeks, 13 days. We play Crystal Palace, early kickoff. First one back, 12:30. I don't think there'll be any pub beforehand. It'll be straight in the stadium. I think a couple of beers in there early. Oh, that's going to be difficult because you have to taste the stuff. Then you haven't anaesthetized your mouth in the pub with a decent pint before you have that crap that they serve us in there. And then our next game then after that will be Forest away on the Tuesday night. And then we've got Liverpool back again. So we probably won't have a podcast next week unless we can think up of something, but we might have the week off.
I've got some planning. I'm planning something now, folks. I'll tell you about it after.
It would have been nice for you to tell me beforehand, but you know.
You know what?
You could even tell the wife this morning when you're having a cup of coffee downstairs. Oh, guess what? Next Monday, you don't have a Monday off.
I hadn't thought of it then, had I, you idiot? By the time I was driving home this morning, and by the time I'd got bored with Simon Gobby Jordan after about 10 seconds and turned TalkSport off, that's when I started thinking about things. My God, you're hard work sometimes, Fergus. Fergus, we can't go yet, right? Because there's something else I want to talk about, right? Just briefly, right? And that's all this going on. And it's a lot of managers are moaning about. No, take me off there, folks. Take me off there. A lot of managers are moaning about the overplaying of players, right? And then managers that are moaning about players playing too often, they're not even players that are in Europe. They're not even teams that are in Europe, you know. We had managers from teams that are going to play 38 games this year and maybe a couple of games in the FA Cup moaning about playing too much football. They've had 2 international breaks, or is it 3? They've had 2 or 3 international breaks already this season, 3 international breaks already this season, and now that most of them have got a couple of weeks off. Listen, don't give me this rubbish, right? Don't give me this rubbish about playing too much football. couple of $100,000 a week. There's millions of people on this planet that would go and run and play every day of the week for a year. So it's absolute rubbish about this playing too much football. This bloke at what's his name, that manager at Brentford. Oh, it's a terrible result. We had a draw. You're only in the league and the cup, mate. You ain't got all of Europe to play and stuff like that. Give us a break, us fans, right? And let us see some football. Let's keep our replays in our FA Cup. You know, I wish it was continuous replays, like when we had to play Liverpool 4 times and Sheffield Wednesday 5 times. You know, made great football for the fans of football. So you just get on managing your clubs and stop moaning about your workload. You don't do a lot anyway. Right, I'm done.
We're done. Right, so we might or might not be back, depending on whether I am amenable to Trevor's requirements.
We will.
If we're not back, Ferg, can you use that hour to please sort out your photos, mate? I just don't want to dig you out week in, week out.
My photos are straight.
No, please. Look, I'm not going to embarrass you off air. Just go away from the podcast.
What are you talking foolishness for?
Ferg, listen.
Think about it to yourself, mate. You know,
play some music, mate, right? And then when it ends, I'm going to do you and Dan and me a favour and make an apology on our behalf. I'm not going to say any more than that until after we listen to our favourite music, mate.
Trevor, you're gone again.
Oh, wow, man. You see, win, lose or draw, boys, we're lucky enough to support a wonderful football club, right? And them that are just using our current bad run just to make money or get clicks, you should be embarrassed about yourselves, because if you're a real Arsenal fan, a real proper Arsenal fan, nothing matters apart from supporting our great team. And last night after the game, they were trying to shut the ground early, which is understandable because of all the transport issues. But a young steward, we were by no means the last to leave, but a young steward tried to usher us out.
That. Oh, that just comes as a flashback.
And he got a right volley. But he got a right volley because we'd just lost the game of football and we were out of the FA Cup. We were all in a bad mood. So after we'd given him the volley and told him not to be a Jobsworth, I did pull him to one side and said, look, mate, I'm really sorry. It's not you. It's just the mood at the moment. So we owed the stewards an apology for last night, and I've just done that. But in future, stewards, a little lesson to learn. If we've lost and everyone's upset, just go about it a bit gentler, because you're going to get a reaction, an involuntary reaction. Fortunately, most people are like us and they'll apologise straight away.
And it wasn't Liz.
I'm going to go as far as saying we've got Gooner Hillsey, we've got Mojito Trev, and now we've got Pitbull Trev.
Got what?
Pitbull Trev.
Pitbull Trev.
Irish Mick, you've been on a whiskey, son, if you think they look straight, let me tell you. You've been on a whiskey.
We'll stick together, Mick. We'll stick together. against these fellas. Oh yeah, that's it's the hair color. He wants to be Irish. He so wants to be Irish with a traditional hair color like that, but he can't. So he has to pick holes in the pictures. So
didn't you get introduced yesterday as my great granddad or whatever it was?
No.
Is that your dad? That's the
I said no, he's my granddad, but
yeah. If that picture in the middle at the bottom there, if that's straight, I'm going to go and get my eyes tested.
That one.
Yeah.
That's not straight.
I'm going to go and get my eyes tested if that's straight.
It is straight, lads. You need to see it. Listen, fuck off the Perriers. You have been watching Guns and Yellow Ribbons.
Please,
an Arsenal podcast. My Arsenal fan.
Next week.
Or Arsenal fan. Listen, there's been loads of you on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. Just go to the channel and like and subscribe. Up the Arsenal. Fuck the Spurs.
Thanks for listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Follow us on Facebook at Guns and Yellow Ribbons or Twitter at Guns and Ribbons. And remember to rate and review us too. Up the Arsenal.
Everybody's just looking at my wall these days. That's all they're looking at.
Fergus, you're a bit twisted, lad.